All right, Captain Log. I think today's the 15th, which is 11 days from go time. And I am freaking out, man. Quite a bit. A little bit. Why? Well, I never moved a boat before. I feel safe, but I don't want to break stuff. So, one of the things that I hadn't really understood was the rigging. I didn't understand how it works, why it works, what we do, how to make sure you're not doing things wrong. So I grabbed this book yesterday and I binge read it. I basically read half this book is about rigging and the other half is about knots and line maintenance and all that stuff. So I basically sat and read the book and I feel so much better that I understand all of the different pieces, how they work, why we use them. But one of the things that I learned was most important was that, so one of the things that you have to deal with rigging is you have to deal with compression and you have to deal with the angle of the stays, which are the metal wires that hold the mast up. And the anything past 12, and that's why we have spreaders, and it's kind of complicated, but it makes a lot of sense. But anything past 12-degree angle greatly reduces the amount of load on the rigging. So if you're under 12 degrees, it turns into like 1,500 pounds very quickly of needed holding power, I guess is the wrong word, but that's the word I'm going to use. And I don't know where my graph is, but it basically says if you are going to, you need to have a 12, if you have 12 degrees or more, 12 is the magic number, and it shows that it decreases your pull. So I have a rigging issue where I need to shorten some of the lines. And what this book made me do was it made me comfortable that I understand, at least I understand what's happening with the different parts on the boat, why they are, how they attach, what not to do. And this was one of the most important things that I learned. And this shows that once you hit 12 and 13 degrees, it dramatically decreases the force. This is force. So if you're 1 degree, if your angle is 1 degree down and your rigging is at the top, it has a huge amount of force. But as you get your rigging gets angled, all you have to do is get to 12 and 13 degrees and you're pretty much set. So my backstays, which are the rigging that I need to tighten, have a huge angle. So it's not this, I don't need it to hold millions of pounds. So that really makes me feel good. So yesterday I started the engine and I adjusted my the drip. I couldn't get it as little as I want, but I got it a little more than I wanted, which is good because that means at least it's dripping. I also had to build a couple websites, so that took up a bunch of time. And then I did the rigging book, and I need to get 2 parts. I think I'm going to go with suede. So I think if I order today, I can have them by Friday, which means I can snip the ends, I can put on the swage list, I can tighten down, and my rig, for the most part, will be okay. I'm finishing up today. I'm finishing up the brace under the mizzen mast, and then I still have to finish the spreader and I have to finish the head. But all of those I need to wait to have this stuff done. Not the head, but the mast light. So everything's coming along. I am I am having times where I get super nervous because I am in charge of the boat. I am the captain. This is the captain's log. And the captain's log is about making the boat, the Cha-Cha, safe to have people on it. So the engine started right up, which is great. The motor mount is holding, which is great. I've got a couple things to finish on the computer. I don't know if you can even see the computer, but there's the computer. I got to finish a couple things on the computer. And then I got to get out my jigsaw, and I got to saw this thing. I also want to, this thing goes over my sink. It's probably not even the right material for over a sink, but for right now, what I need to shorten it. It needs to be like half the size. It's kind of heavy. I really need to find something different, but this works for now. So I think I'm going to cut it, and I think I'll use my grinder. I have a rotary tool someone donated to the cause. So I think I'll get that out when I get my jigsaw out, and I will cut this. I will finish up the braces. I picked up some extra 2x4 yesterday. So I'm going to cut. So I have 3 of those braces. Now, I don't know. I think what I'll do then is I'll loosen up some of my other rigging and start to prop that up. It gets a lot less force than I thought, which makes me feel a lot better. I feel so much better. I am not an expert at any of this. All of these are just literally me reading, and I know that not everybody likes to read, but sometimes you just got to sit down and binge read to get through the material. So these have been super helpful. So yes, I'm nervous. I'm freaking out. It's the same anxiety I had, and this is so funny. Out of all the crazy things I've done, one of the most scary things I've ever done, at least in my mind, right, was when I bought this first motorcycle and I rode up to the north part of Costa Rica all by myself. It was like 5 hours, which is kind of like, it's kind of a big deal. Most people don't even drive 5 hours with someone in Costa Rica. And I did it on a motorcycle that I didn't know, that I knew I was having problems with. So I was very nervous that it was going to break down, that I was going to get stuck somewhere and be there at night and be in the middle of nowhere at night and not know how to move this motorcycle and all of that. So I have that same sort of anxiety. Every once in a while it flares up. I'm not nervous for my safety. I'm more nervous that Cha-Cha is handled improperly because I don't know what I'm doing. But I will tell you what I learned about my rigging and how it works and why I have spreaders and all of those things was great. So this was an amazing purchase. It's called The Rigger's Apprentice. I think it's like 500 pages. I would say I binge read half of it, which the rest of it is more about like knots and what to use. And I did find a really good knot to use. A lot of we use a lot of sheets on the boat, but a lot of it right now we're using a lot of synthetic line, and synthetic line has a tendency of being very slippery. So even the knots that we would use for other types of line, we can't use on synthetic line because it literally just like slips out. And that's how like you end up losing a dinghy. You're using Dyneema and a bunch of tension pulls on it, and it literally, the knot that is unget-outable in other line slips right out. So if you add another little hitch to it, you get a much safer knot. So that made me feel really good. So yeah, I got to get after it today. I have some things to do. The time is getting closer and closer. And then I just have to leave the dock, and then I get to Florida, and I get to still mess with the boat, but it needs to be like fairly safe and ready to roll and able to handle some stuff. And the rigging was a huge thing that I just didn't understand. So that was great. Now I fully like understand. Not fully understand, but it was called The Rigger's Apprentice. And like I said, I binge read half of it. There's charts and graphs about thickness and sizes and how to do eye splices and how to just different why basically these riggings shorten the amount of basically just like length. So this supports here, this supports further up, this brings that angle out so that this doesn't come straight down. So this gives us that 12-degree angle up here. And that's how it is. So now you only have this much that this is doing, and this much that this is doing, and this much that this is doing, as opposed to this much and this much. Plenty of math. This is a science. This is not just oh yeah, that looks great, let's do it that way. No, you have, part of the problem that you have is to keep that angle down, right? The taller your mast and the shorter your boat, the less ability that you have for getting that angle. And you can't, put a spreader that's past the boat, or you'll catch on things as you go through. So it's a science. It made me feel so much better, and rock on.